Welcome to the Transforming Healthcare Coaching Podcast, where we're all about helping healthcare professionals like you create positive change at work, at home, and everywhere in between. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Transforming Healthcare Coaching Podcast. It is now January 2025, and we are hoping that you had a wonderful, calm, relaxing, loving, busy holiday season. And you can't believe it's January. Klaus, how are you doing today?
I know. I can't believe it's January. We just finished those big holidays and it's been great. We've been doing a lot of exciting things through transforming healthcare coaching and working among the holidays like many of you guys in healthcare are doing. And we're excited to start planning some goals with you today.
Yeah. So our episode this week is going to be on goal setting. And Klaus and I are just going to have a conversation and pick each other's brain, and hopefully we'll all become the wiser for it. And so if it's okay with you, Klaus, I wanted to get started with, why do you think that goal setting is so important for healthcare professionals, given the unique challenges that they face, meaning like exhaustion, overextension? Why is goal setting still so important?
Well, I think with goals especially, I think that comes with almost like some bias or it's almost a little cliche or like, what are your goals? And everyone's like, I don't know. I have desires, I have wishes, and I think naming it as a goal, I think gives it a little bit more intentionality behind it. So I think it's important because we all have challenges in healthcare. We all have challenges in our own personal lives. Sometimes it's leaking in between both. And it's important to be aware about it. And then to make changes, you have to have some clear direction to go with that is specific and tailored to you. So that's why I really think it's important. So if exhaustion's what it is, right? You're just exhausted and you have goals to get out of exhaustion and be happier, more fulfilled. Well, what are you going to do about it? You need to have a clear understanding of what it is that you're going to do to live well.
I like that. I think goal setting is sometimes people think it has to be some really big thing, right? Like by the end of this year, or I'm going to lose 10 pounds. Instead, goals can be really small. Like, just what's my goal for today, for this next shift, for this next 2, 3 hours? What's my goal in the different roles or responsibilities I have to show up in any given day? And so I really like what you said about it's really about setting the intention. And so if you wake up and you wonder, what's my goal today? I got this one thing I got to accomplish. Way by the end of the day, if you got it done, you're like, "I achieved my goal today."
And I think that just speaks to New Year's goals. Like how many people have, like, for instance, I think the biggest, most common one, right? Gym memberships go up every new year. And it's because everyone's goal is to become more physically fit, healthier in the ways of physical activity. And it's so generalized. Oh, I want to gain all this muscle. That's my goal. It's a great goal. Don't get me wrong, but it's not broken down into meaningful, measurable steps with intention. And so I think you just named it as what we do as coaches is we break down large goals that may seem impossible or daunting into small, achievable steps because we have to remember that these big goals, it's a journey. It takes time. Some may be achieved sooner rather than later, but oftentimes they take a few months or even a couple of years for some people to accomplish. And you got to celebrate the small wins with achieving small goals. Like how many times, and I'm sure you could speak to it, how many times do you create like a small goal when your day is cramped with many different tasks? How good does it feel when you just say, I did this one thing that I said I was going to do?
Yeah, I think maybe that's why I shortened my list from I guess shorter as I get older. Like it's not gonna be 5 to 10 things, it's gonna be 3, and then after 3 it became 2. And then I agree with you. Whenever I have like 5 or 6 things I have to get done for the week, it's much more anxiety provoking because there's just so many things on that list. Even if I have 7 days to do it, I have 5 things to do, it's still hard. You had mentioned something, SMART goals. Would it be okay if we broke down what is a SMART goal and what's the acronym mean and why each element is really crucial for success?
Yeah, so SMART goal is a way of approaching all our goals. It's a very simple framework that helps you set goals that are clear, achievable, actionable. I can help you break it down. So the S stands for specific. So it's making sure your goals are very clear, very precise, It's basically asking yourself, what exactly is it that I want to achieve? The M stands for measurable. So to set a way to track your progress. So how are you going to know that you achieved whatever that goal is? The other one is achievable. Is it realistic about what you can do given your current circumstances? Like, for instance, we're in healthcare. You may be in a busy shift and you may want to do an hour-long workout after your shift, but is that realistic with how exhausted you are? That you have kids that are hungry at home, right? So a 10-minute walk may be more realistic than that hour-long workout. Is it relevant? So making sure the goals align with what truly matters to you. Oftentimes we get clients that say that they're absolutely exhausted. And one of the things that they had set as a goal was to do this extra thing. I'm like, is that really helping your exhaustion by adding on another task? Or is something like meditating, reading, self care what you're looking to do? And then is it time bound? Did you set a deadline? So oftentimes, right, these large goals, you may have this goal of just becoming more physically fit, but if you don't have a deadline for something specific and measurable, right, what does physically fit mean to you? You have to break down these larger definitions that are not as measurable.
Yeah. It's one of those things where too, whenever we have this framework, sometimes it's really actually hard to make a SMART goal. I'll just name that you have these big ideas, but you actually have no idea how to deconstruct it. So a lot of times with our clients, that's actually what we're working with is how do we deconstruct it into a SMART goal in general?
Yeah, and I think every goal that you have should have this basic underlying framework. At first, it may seem like, what, I have to go through each goal and do this, but the more you do it, the more it becomes habit. And then you'll start to realize these everyday tasks and goals that you have for yourself have a better framework, and that you get to celebrate these small wins, these smaller goals that lead to that bigger goal that you have. And sooner than you expect, that buff body that you were looking for is achieved.
Yeah. I'll just give an example from my own personal circumstance in 2024. I began 2024 with the desire that I want to become a writer. I had given up on this childhood dream of being a writer. And I said to myself, this is what I want to do. But that's a really amorphous, huge thing. Oh, I just am suddenly going to become a writer. So I did multiple different 30-day challenges. And in all of those challenges, what was really clear was the fact that they gave really specific guidelines in terms of what you had to produce by when and in a certain either style or a way that you were accountable to the group or the instructor. And then over time, it became that I actually gave myself the challenge, right? It became 10 minutes a day. And so I'm really grateful for the writing accountability group that I'm currently in, where it's 10 minutes a day. They send an email at 9 a.m. every day, 9 a.m., 10 minutes. They remind you, begin your day with the most important thing. And that's another time management hack, right? It's the eat the frog technique where you do your most important, hardest thing first thing in the morning with 10 minutes. And you'd be surprised what 10 minutes adds up to, at least for me personally. I'm curious if you have any examples from either your own life or your clients' journeys that you'd like to share, Klaus.
Well, first off, that's awesome that you've been able to do that. I think that's incredible that you've used that kind of framework into your everyday life with writing. And I think that can serve as an example for a lot of people who are interested in similar kind of journeys. And I'm trying to think of a specific goal because I have so many goals that I am working on at multiple stages of my life. I I think one goal would be that, like, I've been working on probably relating to our coaching business, and I think even the podcast itself. We started this back in March, as we talked about in a prior episode, and we've come so far. And a new goal has been to really grow our audience and to have more listeners and viewers of the podcast giving comments. And I haven't really thought this out actually. And so this is a good reminder for me to think, what is my SMART goal with it? And I think it is that, let's say, and I'm going to say it out loud with you guys today and have some intentionality behind it, is to be specific about it in that we're in January now. By March, I'd like to have 10 new followers on our show, whether that be on Spotify or Apple. And I think it's completely realistic. I'm sure we could get more, but I'm going to be realistic. And that's my ideal amount. I think if I'm going to aim a little higher, I'm going to look for 50. right? And I know how to do it, but I would say that's my SMART goal for this coming year for this podcast.
I love it. And so, listeners, you heard it first. Please help us achieve our goals by sharing with a friend and also telling us what you want to hear from. The comments below on the YouTube really do matter to us, especially on YouTube. But we also know we have a lot of Spotify listeners. I actually was surprised at Spotify versus Apple this past year, how equal neck to neck all of these different platforms were. And so I think for us, that's been also a learning thing for us as well, is just realizing there's such diversity out there, and being able to try to serve people in so many different ways is a huge learning opportunity, and we appreciate every single person who's out there listening to us on all the different platforms.
Yeah, we've learned so much from the comments that we've received so far, and it does really help us shape kind of the things that we talk about. So, like Lily said, yeah, you guys can all help me with my goal coming forward here that I just vulnerably shared with you and created with you guys on the show.
Yeah. I'm wondering, what are some common mistakes that you see as a coach that people make when they're setting their goals, and how do you think that people can avoid them?
Well, I think a lot of the mistakes, which I never like to say there are mistakes, but I would say that one perceived mistake would be that they think that goal is the goal that they really intended to have, and oftentimes they'll create a goal like that we'll have together because oftentimes we like to end each session with some kind of SMART goal, right? That they can work on by the next session, and that way they can kind of have some tracking of their progress. And the only times we find out that it wasn't aligned with them is that next session. And for a client, that can become very discouraging for them when they start to realize this isn't working. I didn't do this. It didn't align with what I wanted to do. I'm discouraged because, or I didn't achieve what I said it is that I was going to achieve. But in reality, that actually is a win. How many times have we gone out to do something and or tried a new hobby and realized it wasn't for us? Well, you wouldn't have known unless you've actually tried and went through it. So I'm a big believer that we learn from what we do in life. And again, I'm trying to avoid the word mistake because life is full of mistakes,
Yeah.
well, right? And that's how we've become the people we are today through our triumphs, through our struggles, and that's how we figure it out. So I think that would probably be the biggest obstacle with goals is these SMART goals is people getting so discouraged when it's not achieved. And it's very important to reflect on that, revisit that, figure out why that was, and then start again. Like SMART goals are something that continually need revisiting. They constantly need new ones, right? That lead to that big picture that you have for yourself.
That's so wise. So clutch, Klaus, because and I think that's probably the reason why you and I get along so well in terms of we are both action oriented, is that through the action, through the doing, the learning happens. And that learning matters actually much more so than the actual end outcome. And that just goes with that whole growth mindset and fixed mindset that we talked about last year in one of our podcasts about the fact that if you're completely fixed on just what the outcome is, then you'll do all kinds of strange things to get there because the outcome is achieved, and yet you may or may not have actually learned the right things to get there. Because there's all different kinds of ways to, right? I mean, even like you take weight loss as an example, there are different ways to lose the weight. And yet, the reason why there's rebound and recycle is because the journey of learning actually is really important too.
You have to figure out what works for you. And I would actually say that's another thing is a lot of my clients and I think just people in general try and follow a path that is not them. They're trying to walk along somebody else's path, thinking that that's what they need, that's what they want. And it by going through the SMART goal process or just a goal achieving process in general, they start to realize it's exhausting to try and live somebody else's shadow when we're our own person. We're completely different from each other. And there may be some things that resonate and are very similar with this goal and what you're trying to follow. But in general speaking, we're all very different and we all need tailored approaches to these things.
It's funny, you literally explained right there in a nutshell why coaching is different from mentorship, right? So much in all of our clinical careers and our academic careers, that we're sort of told this is how you're supposed to do things. You do exactly, you learn the way I've told you, and this is how you're going to get to the next position. You need to have these things on your CV. You're not promotable unless you do this. You got to have these, be on these committees. You need to know these people. And yeah, it worked for the first, what, 30 years of our lives. And then you realize, well, I have arrived. And yet there is still so much that you need to make your own. And so this is the reason why coaching is now, I think, in healthcare and in medicine, really being shifted to the front end because we're realizing that everyone does have to have a unique way to succeed, and that one person's previous path, well, really a great lesson and definitely worth trying on, in the end still has to be tailored to each individual person. So that's really a great point you make about individual goal setting.
And Lily, I think we share this both, that we both work in academics. I precept PA and medical students. And recently I gave a presentation on burnout, which was completely different from my prior education and involvements. And it took me a while to figure out how I wanted to do this because traditionally when we give lectures where, we're presenting on whether it be like ventilation management or GI, where we're talking about diverticulitis or C. diff, right? Some kind of infectious titus, whatever it may be. We're teaching gold standard therapies and testing modalities from pathophysiology, whereas burnout, as rampant it is in healthcare, is completely unique to everybody.
Mm.
This is something that you and I discovered through our own experiences with burnout and through hiring a coach ourselves and beginning this journey. But the way I tailored this burnout talk was for that reason, a very open-ended, personalized discussion where people could open up about what it meant to them. Because the definition of burnout, wellness, well-being is so hazy to people. And I think it's important to be that way because the similarities of the definitions are there, but the way to overcome it is completely unique.
Yeah, and that's why goals always have to be individualized to the person. And I think in terms of the common issues that people often face that I see when they make their goals, whether it be related to burnout or related to something else, is the fact that sometimes you set yourself way too small. You're way too realistic and you sell yourself short. And I think the other thing that I often see is that you don't see your blind spots. And so what I really love as a coach helping people with their goals is to help them dream bigger and be more expansive, and also show them opportunities to really think through, well, where are they gonna get hung up? And figure it out before it even happens. So, like, get out of your own way, basically.
It's very interesting how I talked about like the expansive big goal that can be a little cloudy sometimes. And you're right. Sometimes it's you sold yourself short. And that's us as coaches help you kind of like get to realize through yourself. And sometimes it doesn't take till the next session to realize, oh, wait, that goal was really easy. Like that, I don't think it's actually making progress towards what it is that I'm setting out to achieve. So that's very interesting that you shared that.
So I'm wondering, how do you actually recommend staying accountable to the goals that you've set, especially for high stress healthcare environments?
Yeah, so that's a big key to SMART goals. You set something that's specific, measurable, action oriented, realistic, and time oriented, right? But how do you stick with that? That is the biggest thing. And accountability is different for everybody. So sometimes people don't need any form of accountability. They're like, I set that small goal, I'm going to do it. Other people, I find it's important to say it out loud. That's why with our one-on-one coaching clients and our MedThrive community, this community that we have for healthcare providers and professionals to really get to communicate their goals and their visions and their plans for the future together and have our group coaching calls to say these things out loud with intentionality is huge because now you're like, I told this group I'm going to do this if I don't do this. And that's why I have my own coach, is that I have all these big dreams. And yeah, I make progress. And this is no way selling coaching in the essence that like you may be somebody who's a go-getter and can do all these things. And I pride myself on that same kind of pathway. But when I had a coach or somebody that I could verbalize these things to, I was accomplishing these things much quicker with more intentionality And then it ended up being like multifactorial where it was helping with other aspects of my life because I started to see things from different perspectives, see my obstacles that I wouldn't have been able to see on my own. Sometimes saying out loud and it just reflected back to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of it like that? So the accountability part is even just telling your partner, if your partner is one person to kind of keep you accountable, be like you said you're gonna do that, or writing it in a journal, I find to be sometimes helpful for some of my clients. Like they reflect every day, they keep that kind of goal highlighted and mention what steps that they've achieved for it. I think is sometimes what people do.
Yeah, so you really highlighted a lot of the things that people have found from science to actually be really helpful. So the writing changing the pathways actually helps you sort of self-reflect and consolidate and also reward you for the fact that you did it. And that makes sense. That makes you more accountable. And having a partner makes you much more likely to actually achieve your goals. So finding anyone to just be able to say texting, going through the journey with you is even much more than even just telling somebody. And then I always laugh in my calendar because there's always all these accountability groups on there. But really, we always want to help and serve other people. We are always gonna do more by making other people and the group and the team happy than just by ourselves. And so I have to admit, like, this is why I'm so grateful for you, Klaus, to be in my life, to be able to have this podcast because I couldn't talk about myself. I don't know how the solo podcasters do it. Like they talk to themselves for 60 minutes. It's so much more fun to have the journey with somebody who's like-minded to be able to do that with. And so I really and that goes to show that this is how we're able to launch in a quicker way. Because I know lots of other communities where I hear people dreaming about their podcast still, and they're still dreaming years later. It really does make a difference to have someone who's aligned with you, who has similar desires, accountability, and skills to walk that journey with you.
Yeah, and it's been a pleasure, and I could say that that's the same thing that our community is saying on MedThrive is that saying these out loud is so powerful to them. These big goals that they have and breaking it down to smaller ones that are achievable. That accountability that can't comes with a partner, with a community, I think speaks more volume than we can praise through here.
Yeah. And so I think our last tip is really just the fact that when you're in a high stress environment, it makes sense that you would find someone who's in the thick of it too, because they understand. And then also, I think for some people in leadership, it really is helpful to actually have the coach to be the one to stay accountable to, because you need quiet guides on the sides of where like the secret Sherpas that help carry all your stuff for you so that you can go be the amazing leader that you need to be in your regular day job, like running a hospital or running a division or running your household, all of those things in general.
Yeah, and it comes with non-judgment. Though we are all in healthcare or have been in healthcare, our team of coaches, we understand the path you're in, but we understand that you're your own unique person with your own experiences. And we're here to listen and hear what it is that you're struggling with and what your dreams and your desires are and help you get there.
Yeah. I think so often healthcare professionals just don't feel heard. And so having the MedThrive community to just be heard in the live group calls and also even just on the online asynchronous where you're just chatting with people and commenting and sharing your story and putting your issues forth for the hive to sort of think about. That's why it's so helpful just to be able to be present for each other in a private place that's protected.
Yeah, totally.
So, as we come to a close, Klaus, how can listeners connect with us if they want help crafting their own goals for the new year?
Yeah. So we have a few opportunities. Obviously, we love for you to comment. We're happy to be your accountability partner here. Comment wherever you're listening to us from Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Send us a message on Instagram or on LinkedIn or Facebook. We'd love to hear what your goals are. And maybe that would be that accountability factor that you need is saying it out loud to us. We'd love to hear it.
We would love to actually begin a conversation. Email us at podcast@transforminghealthcarecoaching.com. And for those of you who would want to have more one-on-one deeper dives, feel free to reach out to us. We offer free discovery calls just to see how we can help you potentially, see if you would be a good fit for one of our one-on-one individual coaching packages, or maybe get on the wait list for MedThrive and join the community.
Yeah, we'd love to see you there.
Thanks, everybody. And thank you for listening. And please share with a friend and help us achieve our goals for 2025.
Would love that. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks so much for listening. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe and share with a colleague who would benefit. Together, we can transform healthcare one person at a time. Find us anywhere you find your podcasts. Ready to take your healthcare leadership journey to the next level? Book a discovery call free at transforminghealthcarecoaching.com to explore our personalized coaching packages designed specifically for healthcare professionals like you.